Okay, a very good afternoon, everyone. So, let us quickly go through the overview of the previous session that we had in the last week. Okay, so initially we had a brief discussion regarding the definition of the e-waste. Okay, we saw that what all things we can consider or what all things we can call as a e-waste. Okay, so that is regarding the definition of the e-waste. Okay, that electronic waste, anything with a plug in a layman language, that is called as a e-waste. Okay, then why is it a problem? Why is e-waste a problem to the society, and why is e-waste a problem to the environment? Okay, so that we have seen. Then what are the disposal techniques? Because as we have seen in the last week and the last to last week, that solid waste and the e-waste are completely different. Okay, so that is why the disposal techniques and the treatment methodologies are different for both. Okay, it is different for the solid waste and it is different for the e-waste. Okay, so we have seen in the previous lecture that what are the different disposal techniques and how the e-waste has to be treated. Okay, so different methodologies we have already seen. Okay, next is our agenda of the previous lecture. So our agenda was to help you to understand regarding the problem of the e-waste. Okay, because generally we as a youngsters, okay, we tend to ignore the problem of the e-waste because it is not a well recognized problem. But if you consider the environmental impact of the e-waste, it is very large. Okay, so we need to understand that the magnitude of the generation of the waste is very high. Okay, and what is its status with respect to India and the developed countries? So last time we discussed in the module that there are a lot of over 5 million PC users, over 5 million mobile users in our country. Also we have seen the data regarding that statistics with the US. Okay, and we can see that how many PCs and how many computers and how many mobile phones are becoming obsolete every day or every year. Okay, so that is a very quite a huge number. So you can just imagine that how much is the generation, because first of all we need to understand that how much generation is there, then and then only we can think about the treatment options. Okay, so that is it regarding our agenda of the previous session. Okay, now today we are going to start with the definition of the waste again, because we are going to understand the meaning of the biomedical waste. Okay, biomedical waste is again a much more recognized problem. Okay, compared to the solid waste, it is very difficult to handle, it is very difficult to gen- uh, treat it, as well as the collection and the disposal. Okay, so we'll start with the definition of the biomedical waste. Then what are the sources, because it is very important to identify the sources of this waste in order to treat it. Okay, so we'll see about the sources, then regarding the disposal and the treatment of this waste. Okay, so that is again an important point that we are going to discuss. Okay, and our agenda of the forthcoming lecture will be human population and environment. So we'll finish this module today, that is regarding the environmental pollution. Okay, and we'll start with the next session on the next lecture, that is regarding the human population and environment. Okay, so we'll basically deal with what is overpopulation, how can I define the term called overpopulation, what are its causes. Okay, that is the causes of the overpopulation, and whenever there is a overpopulation in a particular area, okay, what are the social effects on the particular population or the particular area. So these are the things that we are going to discuss in the next session. Okay, so if there is any doubt regarding any of the points we have discussed, you can mention it to me on the chat box. Okay, otherwise I'm going to start with the today's topic, that is regarding the biomedical waste, which is also known as a BMW. Okay, so we'll start in a minute. Okay, So we are starting with the biomedical waste. Okay. So first of all, what is biomedical waste that we will discuss? Okay. So waste, something which is not put into a proper usage at a given time, is known as waste. We have seen the definition of the waste. We have seen the different definitions of the waste in the last two modules. Okay. Again, the classification of the waste, it is divided mainly into solid waste, liquid waste, and gaseous waste. Okay, so what we are going to discuss is the classification of the solid waste. The first of all, it is household waste. Then we have industrial waste, and the third and the most dangerous out of these three is the biomedical waste or the hospital waste. Okay, so that we are going to discuss in this particular module. Okay, so biomedical waste, any waste generated during the diagnosis, treatment, or immunization of human beings or animals or in research activities pertaining thereto or in the production or testing of the biological items. Okay, that is known as a biomedical waste. So basically, in a layman's language, like we did in the case of the e-waste. So e-waste is basically anything with a plug. So here I can say that anything which is associated or related with the treatment of the human beings or animals, okay, or in any case of the research activities, that is known as a biomedical waste. I can give you the current example that in terms of the research activities, that is currently we have a vaccine of the corona, COVID-19. Okay, but you don't know that how many research or how many trials are done on the humans, how many trials are being examined by the different companies for the approval of the vaccine. So basically, during those trials, it is a trial and error method. So out of hundreds, thousands of trial, only one or two gives the accurate result. So what happens to the another things? They become a biological waste. So it is very important to discard, or it is very important to just treat this waste. Okay, so that is called basically as a biomedical waste. Okay, then what are the causes? How is the cause of this biomedical waste? So that generally is accounted due to the improper packaging, segregation of the waste, and treatment and the disposal of the biomedical waste. Okay, so these are the three main important points due to which the waste is being caused. Okay. Okay, so these are the root causes, you can say, regarding the biomedical waste. Okay. Next is classification of biomedical waste. So now suppose if I want to further classify the biomedical waste, it is divided into mainly different parts. Okay, so the first and foremost is the infectious waste. Okay, what is carried under the infectious waste is the waste that can cause the infections from one person to another. Okay, then pathological waste, that is the waste that is generated in the laboratories. Okay, then sharps means needles, injections, syringes. Okay, then pharmaceutical waste, genotoxic waste, chemical waste, waste with high content of heavy metals, because in certain medicines there are a lot of heavy metals that are involved. Okay, so that is basically called as a heavy metals which contains the waste. Okay, then pressurized containers. So some of the medicines or some of the gases are in the pressurized containers, so that is again a one type of the waste, because sometimes this cylinders or the containers may take a blast. Okay, and it can cause a lot of problem to the environment. Okay, and last one is the radioactive waste. Again, that is basically developed due to the researchers in the field of the medicine. Okay, so here is a complete list of the examples. Okay, so just have a look at it. Okay, so genotoxicity means basically it is a property of the chemical agents that can cause the damage to the genetic information within a cell. Okay, and that happens due to the mutations which may lead to the dangerous diseases. One of the important among them is cancer. Okay, so that is the meaning of genotoxicity. Okay. So the classification of the biomedical waste now will take one at a time. So infectious waste, it contains the bacteria, viruses and parasites in sufficient quantity to cause the diseases in the susceptible hosts. Okay, now this infectious waste depends upon person to person. Okay, it depends upon the system of each and every person. Okay, everyone will not get infected with the waste. Okay, but the person who is having a low, this thing will get infected due to this infectious waste. Okay, so again it is a dangerous because the people will, whoever is having the low immunity will be the sufficient, will be the susceptible target to this type of the infectious waste. Okay, this category involves, or it includes, the cultures and the stocks of the infectious agents from the laboratory work, infectious waste from the surgery on the patients with diseases, and infected animals from the laboratory. So all this are basically a part and parcel of the infectious waste. Okay. Next is pathological waste. It consists of the tissues, organs, body parts, human fetuses, and animal caresses, blood and body fluids that are there in the laboratory. For so whenever any type of the laboratory sample is there for doing any type of the waste, or sorry, any type of the tests. Okay, so these samples have to be discarded properly, because whenever you get the results of this test, what happens to this sample that is being collected by the pathological person? Okay, it needs to be discarded, or needs to be disposed of very much properly, because otherwise it has a very high tendency of causing the infections. It has a very high tendency of causing the problems to the people who is handling this waste, or to the laboratory staff. Okay, next, this is I think very common, that is sharps. So these are the items that could cause cuts or puncture wounds, and this include basically the needles, scalpel and other blades, knives, infusion sets, saws, broken glass and nails. So these are the basically the items which is a very high tendency of causing the cuts in the patient's, cuts in the person who is handling this waste, or it might puncture the wounds. So just imagine that if these needles and the syringes, okay, of the injections are just disposed of in, with respect to the normal solid waste, what will happen? It will just cause a cut, or it will just cause a puncture to the person who is doing the manual separation, because we have seen during the solid waste disposal, or we have seen the particular paragraph regarding the solid waste handling, that there is a manual separation which is being done by the people at the site, that is at the centralized location. So if this type of the thing happens over there, that they find out a needle, or knowingly or unknowingly they just separate this waste, and they might get hurt, so who is responsible for that? So basically it is a responsibility of the hospital staff, or the pathological laboratories, to see to it that the sharps, that is the needles, glasses, okay, and the syringes are disposed of in a separate manner. So we'll see at the end of this particular session that how the collection of this type of the waste really happens. Okay, so that you need to keep in your mind. Okay, next is pharmaceutical waste. It includes the expired, unused, split, and contaminated pharmaceutical products, drugs, vaccines. So all those things are included under the pharmaceutical waste. Okay, so basically you just imagine the example that suppose you have purchased a particular medicine, okay, for any of your family members, but they are unused, okay, or some of the part of that becomes, are unused for a longer period of the time, and it approaches its expiry date. Okay, and if the expiry date of that particular thing is passed on, okay, we don't use that particular product. Okay, so that is one type of the waste. Okay, so that is called a pharmaceutical waste product. Same goes for the drugs and the vaccines. Okay, so that is called basically as a pharmaceutical waste. So a proper treatment has to be done regarding this waste. Okay, again you cannot dispose it off with your regular solid waste. Then genotoxic waste. Okay, genotoxic waste is highly hazardous, and it may have mutagenic, that is related to the mutation of the viruses, teratogenic, or carcinogenic properties, which has a high tendency of causing diseases like cancer. Okay, so again, treatment and disposal of this type of the waste is very, very crucial. It raises serious safety problems both inside the hospitals and the disposal, and should be given a special attention. Okay, it includes certain cytostatic drugs, vomits of the patient, urine of the patient, feces of the patient, treated with cytostatic drugs, chemicals, and radioactive material. So the whole hospital staff is generally related, or whole hospital staff is generally responsible for handling this type of the waste, because it is very crucial that first step is to handle, or first step is to do the collection of this type of the waste, because at the time of the collection only, if this type of the waste is mixed with all the other hospital waste or with the solid waste, then it is very difficult to separate this type of the waste at the second step, or at the centralized location collection step. Okay, so the first step and the first important responsibility is for the hospital and the laboratory staff to see to it that the different color codification is being mentioned at the end of this PPT regarding how and in which manner the different type of the waste have to be collected. So the collection vehicle in case of this biomedical waste is also see to it that this different waste are collected into the different colored buckets, so that they do not get mixed up, because this biomedical waste have the different type of the handling or the treatment for all the different type of the waste. Okay, so that has to be seen. Then chemical waste. Okay, so it consists of the discarded solids, liquids, and gaseous chemicals. So all these are included under the head of the chemical waste. Chemical waste may be hazardous or it may be non-hazardous. It is considered to be hazardous if it has at least one of the following properties. So which waste you can classify under the chemical hazardous waste? So either if the waste is toxic, it is flammable, it is reactive, or it is a genotoxic component, or it is corrosive in nature. Generally, acids of pH less than 2 and bases of pH greater than 12 are considered as a hazardous waste. Then next, waste with high content of heavy metals. It represents a subcategory of hazardous chemical waste and is usually highly toxic in nature. It generally includes the batteries, broken thermometers, and blood pressure gauges. So again, these are the modern equipments. Okay, generally some of them are being used in your day-to-day household life as well. Okay, why this broken thermometer is dangerous? Because it contains the mercury. So if it is broken, okay, then mercury will be spilled out. Okay, and it has a very high uh, problem with the environment. It can cause a high problem in the normal environment. Okay, then next is we were talking about the pressurized containers. Okay, so now what is this? Many type of the gas are used in the healthcare and are often stored in the pressurized containers, cartridges, and aerosol cans. Okay, so most common gas which used in the healthcare includes the anesthetic gases. Okay, ethylene oxide, oxygen, and compressed air. So currently you might have seen many a times that the oxygen cylinders are being carried to the people's homes, or in the hospitals. So if these items are not handled properly, or if these items are not handled carefully, it has a chances of blast of the cylinders. Okay, and then it will have a very dangerous impact on the environment. So it is very important that we handle it properly, and that is why on this all the cylinders, or on the all these cans, there is a symbol of the danger that is being mentioned, so that the people who is handling, or people who are generally seeing this, handle it with a proper care. Then radioactive waste. Okay, so it includes x-rays, alpha and beta particles, and gamma rays emitted by the radioactive substances. Okay, so what is alpha particles? They are the heavily charged positive, and it includes the protons and neutrons. They have low penetration power and are hazardous to humans, mostly when they are inhaled or ingested in their nervous system. Okay, so these alpha particles are very dangerous. Okay, and they are hazardous in nature. Beta particles are negatively or positively charged electrons with significant ability to penetrate the human skin. They affect human they affect the health through ionization of intracellular proteins and proteinaceous components. And finally, the gamma rays are electromagnetic radiations which are similar to the X rays, but they have a shorter wavelength. Okay, their penetration power is high and lead shielding is required to reduce their intensity of this type of the rays. Okay, so all these three types of the rays are hazardous in nature and we need to be careful regarding that. Okay, so just have a look at it. Okay, next is the sources of the biomedical waste. So these are the common sources that we have discussed even initially. So the primary sources, the hospitals, healthcare centers, blood banks, and biotechnological institutions. Okay, you can also include the laboratories, that is pathological laboratories over here. So those are the main sources of the biomedical waste. Okay, then household waste. Okay, then industries, educational institutes, and research centers. So these also generate the biomedical waste in a substantial quantities. Okay, the type of the waste generated from the animal houses is typically the animal tissues, organs, body parts, caresses, body fluids, blood, etc. of the experimental animals. So all this are included under the industries, educational institutes, and research center waste because they generate a lot of waste, so it has to be handled carefully. Then blood banks and clinical laboratories. Okay, so blood banks and laboratories generate most of the categories of the biomedical waste. Why? Because whenever you go to the blood banks, you will always see that the blood is being collected with the help of the syringes and the needles. Okay, so these needles have to be disposed of at the same time because many people during a day will give the blood. So if these needles are reused again, it might cause a infection in the another patient. Okay, same goes for the laboratories. Okay, so they generate a lot of waste, they generate a lot of different type of the categories of the biomedical waste, so it has to be handled very much properly. Okay, healthcare establishments. Okay, this sources of biomedical waste generated in the healthcare setting. Okay, so basically it refers to the hospitals and the dispensaries. Okay, effects of biomedical waste. The improper management of the biomedical waste causes serious environmental problems in terms of air pollution, okay, that we have discussed, water pollution, okay, and land pollution. So these are the three impacts of the improper management of the biomedical waste. Okay, so if it is properly managed, it will not have a serious impact on the environment. Okay, so with respect to air pollution, what are the effects? So air pollution can be caused in both indoors and outdoors. Biomedical waste that generates the air pollution is of three types. One is biological, chemical, and radioactive, which is one of the most damaging part. Because if there is a radioactive pollution, a lot of people in a faraway area will also get impacted because the power of radiology or power of radioactive chemicals is very high. Okay, so we should see to it that there should be a never a problem regarding this radioactive waste. Okay, and it is disposed of safely and properly with utmost care. Okay, then indoor air pollution, that is hospital acquired infections. Indoor air pollution can be caused due to poor ventilation facility. So if there is a hospital which does not have proper ventilation support, ventilation properties, okay, then definitely the waste that is generated will remain into the same campus. Okay, so proper ventilation facilities are required in the hospital. The paints, carpets, furnitures, equipments, etc. used in the rooms. So if again that is poor, okay, then it will cause a ill impact on the indoor facilities or the indoor air pollution. And use of chemicals, disinfectants, fumigants, if they are used in a higher concentration, then again it will cause a problem, or it will cause a lot of indoor pollution, air pollution for the nearby areas. Okay, or in the same building, you can say. Okay, so that is regarding the indoor air pollution. Okay, so basically you can see over here that the water pollution is also done due to lot of this biomedical waste, because if this biomedical waste is directly disposed of into the water facility, then it will create a lot of problem to the water bodies, water animals. Okay, and the food chain that is established in the water bodies is generally disturbed, and due to that a lot of other factors will also get impacted. Okay, then land pollution. So open dumping of biomedical waste is the greatest cause for land pollution. Okay, so if open dumping is done of this biomedical waste, I already told you at the very start of the solid waste that biomedical waste is one of the waste which has to be treated very carefully. Okay, you cannot do the open dumping, or you cannot do the direct burning of this waste like we did in the case of the solid waste. Okay, in the case of the solid waste, we so there is a drum incinerator, that inside a particular drum all the solid waste is accumulated, and in an open area you just burn this waste. Okay, so that is practically not possible with the biomedical waste, because it will create a lot of toxic chemicals, it will create a lot of uh, air pollutants. Okay, so soil pollution from the biomedical waste is caused due to the infectious waste, discarded medicines and chemicals. Very heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, mercury, which are present in the waste, will get absorbed by the plants and they can enter into the food chain. Okay, and it will create a lot of social environmental impact if this particular thing is happening. Okay, so this is regarding the land pollution effect of the biomedical waste. Okay, so now moving on to the different methods of disposal of the biomedical waste and their segregation. So this is very important table that I'm showing it to you. Okay, so the category number one. So now we have seen that there are different categories of the biomedical waste. Okay, because different categories will have the different treatment. Okay, and the different disposal. So the category number one, that is regarding the human anatomical waste. Okay, so the treatment that is generally suggested is incineration. Okay, or the deep burial system. So deep burial system is generally done on the open landfills far away from the city area. Okay, category number two, that is animal waste. Okay, so it includes animal tissues, organs, body parts, caresses, bleeding parts, fluid, blood, and experimental animals used in the research, waste generated by the veterinary hospitals, that is the animal hospitals, and colleges, and discharge from the hospital. So all these are included under the animal waste. Okay, again the treatment facility that is generally suggested is incineration and deep burial of this in the open landfills. Category number three, okay, that is microbiology and biotechnology waste. Okay, so the treatment facility that is generally suggested over here is again incineration or microwaving, which is similar to the incineration process, or the local autoclaving process. Okay, so these are the three categories, category 1, 2 and 3 for the disposal of the biomedical waste. So just have a look at it quickly. Okay, so next one, category number 4, that is including the waste sharps, needles, syringes, scalpels. So this we have already discussed in the case of the sharps. Okay, so the treatment facility that is generally suggested is disinfecting. Okay, that is the chemical treatment, autoclaving, microwaving, or finally shredding. Shredding means breaking it down into the powdery form. Okay, so that is basically eliminating the harmful components from the infectious waste. Okay, then category number 5, we have discarded medicines and cytotoxic drugs. Okay, so again the best suited method or best suited alternative for this type of the waste is basically incineration, destruction, and drug disposal into the secured landfills. Okay, so basically you have to dispose it off into the open landfills which are secured far away from the city area. Okay, next category number 6 is regarding soil waste. Okay, the treatment facility which is best suited for this type of the waste is incineration, autoclaving, or it is microwaving process. Okay, and solid waste, that is category number 7. Okay, it is disinfecting by chemical treatment, shredding, autoclaving, and microwaving. So these are the different uh, points that you have to consider, you have to keep in your mind for the different categories of the biomedical waste. So again, just have a look at it quickly, then we shall move on. Okay, yes, microwaving is basically passing on the heat, or you can say passing on the steam. Okay, so basically what will happen is it will decontaminate, or it will deactivate the infectious material. So that is the meaning of the microwaving of the biomedical waste. Okay, next Next is category number 8, which is regarding the disinfecting by the chemical treatment and discharge it into the drain. So basically, this is for the lower level, or you can say low concentration waste. Okay, so that is missing over here. Okay, so if the waste is having a low concentration of the infectious material, you can disinfect it by either the chemical treatment, or it is advisable to discharge into the drains. But again, it should be of low toxicity, or you can say the low concentration. Okay, then and then only you can discharge it into the drains. Category number 9 is incineration ash, that is from any of the incineration process of the biomedical waste. Okay, the main option or the best option is disposal into the municipal landfills. Okay, and last category is chemical waste, which is treated by the chemical treatment. Okay, and after the proper treatment, it is discharged into the drains for the liquids and secured landfills for the solid. Okay, so these are the general treatment for the categories 8, 9, and 10. So just have a look at it very quickly. Okay, next is steps in management of the biomedical waste. So starting with the survey of the waste generated, the next step is segregation of the hospital waste, collection and categorization of this waste, storage of the waste. Okay, the storage should not be beyond the 48 hours, otherwise the infectious particles will spread. Okay, so the storage should not be more than 48 hours, and it should be collected and transported to the centralized location. So the next step is transportation of the waste. Okay, and after that we have the treatment of the waste. Okay, so this cycle will be continuously ongoing in the case of the biomedical waste management. Okay, that is there. Okay, after this we have the color coding for the segregation of the biomedical waste. That is, the different colors are given to the different type of the waste, so that whenever the collection or the handling of this waste is done, okay, it should be seen to it that this colors refer to this type of the waste, so that the different treatment options which are mentioned in the earlier table as well, okay, that is done over here. So a yellow color dustbins or the yellow colored bags, it contains the human and animal anatomical waste, microbiological waste, and soiled cottons, dressings, linen, and beddings. Okay, so the treatment that is suggested for this is incineration and the deep burials. Okay, then red colored bags, okay, that contains the tubings, catheters, and IV sets. So the treatment options is autoclaving, microwaving, and chemical treatment. The third color is blue or white colored bags, which contains waste sharps, that is needles, syringes. The treatment option that is suggested over here is autoclaving, microwaving, chemical treatment and destruction, and shredding of the waste, that is breaking it down into the powdery form. And the last color, that is black, that is discarded medicines, cytotoxic drugs, incineration ash, chemical waste. Okay, so the disposal in the secured landfills is the treatment that is there for this type of the waste. Okay, so you can see that this colored codification is mentioned in each and every hospital. Okay, so whenever you go to the hospital, just make sure that you see this. Okay, because this collection is done in a very specific manner. Okay, in the standard developed hospitals you will definitely see this. In the government hospitals you need to check that if this is available or not, because the collection of the waste has to be done in a systematic manner to go undergo a proper treatment. Okay, so next is one research article. Okay, so a cross-sectional study was conducted among the hospitals whose bed capacity is greater than 100. Because if you see this, then only you will be able to relate it with the theoretical things that we have seen. To know the knowledge, attitude, and practices about the biomedical waste management among the healthcare personnel. Okay, so who are this healthcare personnel? There are 75 doctors, 60 nurses, laboratory technicians, 78, and sanitary staff, which are working in the hospitals and the labs, 70 numbers. Okay, so this survey, or you can say this research, suggested that the doctors, nurses, and the laboratory technicians have better knowledge than the sanitary staff regarding the biomedical waste management. Basically, that is perfectly okay, since the doctors, nurses, and laboratory technicians are well trained. Okay, sanitary staff are trained, but they do not have the knowledge as much as the level of the knowledge of the other people. Okay, the knowledge regarding the color coding and the waste segregation at the source was found to be better among the nurses and laboratory staff as compared to the doctors, because doctors are not related, or you can say the doctors are not related in this waste segregation process or the collection of this waste process. Okay, they are directly related to the direct interaction with the patients. Okay, so the nurses and the laboratory staff are responsible for the waste segregation, waste collection in a different particular bins. Okay, so they have this type of the knowledge. Regarding practices related to the biomedical waste management, sanitary staff were ignorant on all the counts, so that is again a poor practice from the hospital staff. So if sanitary staff are treated properly, or if they are given the proper knowledge regarding this, then definitely it will improve the collection standards and it will improve the treatment facilities also. Okay, so here we finish regarding the biomedical waste. Okay, so any doubt in any of the points, please tell me very quickly. Okay, you can tell me if you have any doubts in any of the topics that we have discussed up till now. Okay, I'll wait for a minute for you. Okay, so I think the topic is clear for everyone. Okay, so that is it for today. I have taken your attendance already, so no need to mention on the chat box. Okay, you can leave now. Okay, attendance is already taken from the participant list. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day.